You are listening to Fox Radio 910 or 104.3. Welcome to Let's Talk About, sponsored by Crowning Touch Senior Moving Services at 6704 Williamson Road in Roanoke. And my name is Linda Balentine, founder and CEO of Crowning Touch, the only local moving company that focuses on seniors making a move, and the only moving company that can write you a check. We can sell what our clients no longer want in either our consignment shop or our auction house. And then we split the proceeds 50-50. And you know, that money helps offset the cost of a move. Our next auction is September 12th to the 14th. To register and bid online for over 1,600 items, go to crowningtouchusa.com. Every lot will be pictured. And if you need a moving estimate, call Anna at 540-982-5800. So now let me introduce my guest for today. Susan Peters is a true patriot in the full sense of the word, and she's come all the way from Galax for the second time to join us in the studio today and to educate us about COS, which is the Convention of States. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Linda. It is always good to spend time with you, and I love talking about Convention of States.
Well, I know you do, and we need a Convention of States, and Virginia needs to join the Convention of States. I think there's 20 or 21 that have already joined. But I want you to be able to tell our listeners let's talk about what COS is and why it's so important.
Thanks for the opportunity. Convention of States is part of the Constitution. In Article 5, if you remember your Constitution, Article 5 is the place where amendments are able to be made. And most of us know that 2/3 of Congress can propose an amendment to the Constitution. But most of us don't know that the states working together can propose amendments as well. So we need 2/3 of the states to propose a like amendment. And when that happens, Congress calls the time and the place for that convention to happen. And we address the issues that is in that like proposal.
So why in the world do you think it's become so important? There never has been the exercise of that privilege that our founding fathers put in there, sort of like their workaround. They anticipated situations where the government might no longer be for the people, by the people. And so this is the workaround. But why is it so important now?
It's critical now because according to our founding fathers, government has run amok. They are doing what is not in the best interests of the people. And we've been told that a tyranny will not reverse its tyranny. We all know that. Right. And that's what we're encountering right now. So our founding fathers put a way in for the citizens, we the people, right, to override what we've delegated our authorities to do and take that responsibility on for themselves. We've actually tried to do this a number of times in the past and never gotten to the threshold. And in part because sometimes when we get close, Congress goes, that's a great idea. We'll take that over.
Gotcha.
And they have gone ahead and proposed something that was like it, but not nearly as good. We, the people, we're the ones with the investment in this country.
From what I understand, in the state of Virginia, let's get specific about Virginia. We have lots of listeners listening from Virginia as well as outside Virginia. But let's talk about Virginia for a minute, because from what I understand, they convene again. The legislature convenes. Is it January or February?
They begin in January.
All right. They have 45 days. These people only serve for 45 days. And it has to be presented and voted on in the same session. Correct. In order for it to carry weight, in order for us to be approved to become a part of the convention.
In both houses.
Okay, yes. All right.
So, and actually the structure of the Virginia House of Delegates is that we can introduce the resolution before January.
Wow.
So there's a couple month period of time where we can take this resolution, find a sponsor, a legislator who's willing to say, I'll put my name on it and I'll bring it up for you. And so that when we get to January, we can be ready to debate. We can have already gotten other co-sponsors to do that. And part of what Convention of States is doing, and the thing that I love so much, is that even more important than the convention that we're aiming at, what we're working at is restoring a culture of self-governance in America. So what has happened in our nation, and I don't know if you've experienced this in Crowning Touch, but we don't engage with our legislators very much. We've delegated authority to them, and then we've sat back and said, they'll take care of things. Well, Linda, with your employees, if you said to them, hey, I've hired you, go at it, without overseeing and without giving them input, you wouldn't get the results you want.
That's an excellent analogy. And part of the other problem is that we have at least one, probably two generations that haven't been trained in the history, either their local civics or our national history, and they don't know, they probably hardly know that they have legislators that are responsible to them, that they're really, that they have hired. So when they go in to vote, they may vote on, whatever placard they saw stuck in the ground with very little knowledge about what's going on. And that's why I wanted to have this program again. I wanted to wake us up as a populace that's responsible for one of the greatest countries on the planet. And I don't want to see it dissolve. There are three main topics, I think, that we're looking at for this particular convention of states. And it's probably a bipartisan appeal, I would say, because one of the big ones is term limits. Another one is restoring fiscal responsibility. In other words, we're talking about making an amendment where it's illegal for the government not to be fiscally responsible and balance their budget. Mm-hmm. And then we're trying to limit the excessive regulation. There are more regulations almost than there are laws. It's 300,000 or something regs that got passed in 1 year. It's a shocking, you can't even abide by it. You can't take a breath anymore without stepping on something that shouldn't be there. And we used to have so much more breathing room as a free people. And we don't have that. But the worst part in my book is that the people making those regulations are people I never voted for. We've gotten so top heavy in government. You have so many departments. You have 2 and 3 and 4 departments replicating themselves, duplicating their efforts even over and above the state efforts, whether it's the Department of Education or however you want to look at it. And it's gotten oppressive.
It really has. The interesting thing that I find, Linda, is Thomas Jefferson said, laws are confirmed by the consent of the governed. So if we don't say anything, the government assumes our consent. And there are a lot of things that have happened, even down to what kind of light bulbs to use and how much water to use in your toilet.
Good examples.
Ridiculous ideas that the government has absolutely no business in. The federal government is only tasked with 17 different issues in the Constitution. Everything else is left to the states and to the people. But yet we have, using the Department of Education, for example, we've got a federal Department of Education. We've got a state Department of Education. We've got a local Department of Education. Mm-hmm. And every single one of them believes that they have more authority over our children than we do. Right. And that's not true. We are still responsible for our children. And it's irrational to think that a government with 3 heads, federal, state, and local, is more effective than somebody who's thinking clearly by him and herself.
Got you covered. All righty. So let's talk about the Virginia General Assembly. I want to focus on that again because I want everybody listening to really, be ready to go do something today, this weekend. Get online. We've got something that you can do. Right now, if you're in Virginia, I have the website pulled up for the Convention of States. It's so simple: conventionofstates.com. You pull up their homepage, and it's the first thing you see is sign the petition to call for an Article 5 convention. And all you have to do, you can click the full petition and put in your name, your email, a mobile phone number. You can ask them to send you text message updates, and that goes to a team where in Houston, is that where this goes? And then they're going to send your petition to your legislature. The legislatures don't pay attention to anything unless they hear from you. And this is about the easiest way to make your voice heard. This is just the start, by the way, but at least you can do that.
It's a wonderful opportunity to let you practice giving input to your own legislature.
Right.
And in Virginia, we have 77,000 people who have signed the petition. And whenever it does, it gets digitally transmitted to your legislator. So every day our legislators are getting these in and saying, another person.
So if they get enough of them, they can't ignore it anymore. And then there are people on the ground that are dedicated to trying to get this happen in Virginia that then they take it to the next step. They go, and we invite everybody to find out where your legislator is going to be. You can find out who your legislator is by going to this Convention of States website. Mm-hmm. And then you can call up. They're back home now. You're right. They're
home
session. And by the way, these legislators only make, what is it, $20,000 a year?
Minimal.
Something not much.
But for 45 days work.
They're there for 45 days. But so they all have other jobs that they're doing that take up their time. But they're out there in the community, and you can run across them. You can run across them at a Ruritan meeting. You can run across them at the Golden Corral. You can run across them. But if you do, and you might even seek them out, you need to mention to them that you're a constituent and that you want to make sure that they're going to vote for the Convention of States in Virginia in order for us to join. Does that make sense?
Yes. Convention of States and what we're doing, as you said earlier, with term limits, fiscal responsibility, and reducing the size and the scope of the regulatory aspect of Washington. Those are fundamental issues of our Constitution. We've lost those powers as citizens because we haven't spoken up. And so for you to have an opportunity to say hi to your legislator, let him know what's important to you. These are three critical issues that once we can get them righted in amendments in the Constitution, we will resume a large part of our authority. But I like to think of this as going on a diet. When someone goes on a diet and loses the exact amount of weight that they want, they've had a prescribed amount of food, amount of calorie intake or whatever. When they hit their desired weight, they can't go back to their previous way of eating and expect to remain with that same weight. You'll gain weight. I'll gain weight that way. We have to start this as a habit. Begin the practice of letting your legislator know what's important to you. And we've said Convention of States and our three issues are fundamental issues, but there are a lot of other things that are important to you and to me that our legislators need to hear about as well.
That's right.
Whatever is important to you is important to them because you're their constituent.
So this is just a door that we're pointing to right now because, it comes up. Our chance to rectify the situation only presents itself once a year.
Correct.
And so we don't want another whole year to go by. We're trying to get to 34 states. And Virginia should be one of them.
We are the first in liberty. We should be right there in the middle of this debate and encouragement to restore the culture of self-governance in America. Mark Meckler, the president of Convention of States, is fond of saying the key issue for Convention of States is who decides? Who do you want to decide the issues of your life? There are a lot of things that we don't have to ask the government about. But on the issues where government has a reasonable involvement, don't you want the responsibility to be as close to you as possible?
That's right. And right now, in this particular season, we are all politically motivated more than general because of this great presidential election coming up. But if we can carry some of that energy forward and do what we can besides just cast a vote on November 5th, we can continue to work away, because it doesn't matter. I mean, it certainly does matter to me who gets in there, but this is an underlying issue that has to be addressed, that neither one of those presidential candidates can fix by themselves.
Exactly. The Constitution starts, we the people. We are the authority. And America is the first country in the history of the world where the people established the government, not the other way around. We are in charge. We can tell our government what needs to be done. Now, you as one person and I as one person, they can ignore us.
Right.
But working together is a critical issue. And that's what we're doing with Convention of States. That's why we need the 34 states. That's why we need people in Virginia learning how to find out who their legislator is, learning to call them on the issues that are important to them. And our legislators need to learn how to listen to us. If we don't call them and tell them what's important, they think they're doing a fine job on their own. Mm-hmm. So if you want to learn more about this, and we'll put this information at the end of this show as well, go to conventionofstates.com.
Right.
As Linda said, you can find out there who your legislator is.
Just by plugging in your zip code.
Exactly. Contact my legislator.
And you should. Everybody should know who their legislator is, who their senator is, who their vice president is. You need to know these things.
Exactly. And actually on the conventionofstates.com website, if you plug in your address, it will bring up who your legislators are, right, and even a sample email that you can just send off or modify and send off.
Okay, that's good. All righty. So I want to mention something else. For those of you who might be inspired by this radio broadcast here today, there is a group of patriots that meets at Famous Anthony's. I think it's the second Saturday morning at 8 a.m.
And that's the Famous Anthony's on Challenger off Orange.
Correct. That's right. So you take out, you go out 460 out of town. And then it's right there. But we all get together and we update each other on, the count that the legislatures have. We talk about other topics that might be raised as a part of the Convention of States. We just have to have the Convention of States, and then we guarantee that something awesome will come out of it, because I do know one thing. The senators, the congressmen are never going to vote themselves a term limit restriction. They just aren't going to. So they're happy to be there for 40 plus years. And that just doesn't work for me.
It was
never meant to be that way. It was never designed for these guys to get on in there, go in, come out millionaires after having sat in a seat for all that time, losing touch with the public that they serve. That's what's going on. And you have no way to get rid of them. And we need to be able to do that in some reliable way.
It's against human nature to reduce your own authority, to reduce your own spending. Mm-hmm. In America, we've taken polls, and the polls are saying that 82% of Americans want term limits on their legislative officials. But probably very few of those 82% are the elected officials themselves. We as Native Americans and naturalized Americans, mm-hmm, we're all the same. As citizens, we are all the same. We are the ones who need to say to them, this is important to me. And as we do that in bulk, as we do that in Virginia, as we do that in all the states so that we can get to the 34, our legislators will hear us, and they will learn to start listening to us. So we speak to them calmly, clearly, as you said, Linda. Let them know you're a constituent. Let them know you're one of the people who voted them into office.
They should listen to you that way, and especially at this time of year.
And legislators like to be liked. So when you talk to them and are nice to them and know that they're constituents, they will pay attention to you. And being nice to them doesn't mean just saying things that will gratify their ego. It means telling them the truth in the kindest possible way.
Yeah. I also want to mention that on the 14th, Saturday, September 14th, out at our auction house, we're having a grand auction with all sorts of things out there at Crowning Touch. We auction more than anybody else for, I don't know where you'd have to go to find another auction that has, 1,800 lots that they auction off every month. But we're going to have a Convention of States booth. We are going to, so that at Crowning Touch, you can browse the auction. We have a 3-day event, but Saturday will be the last day. It ends at 8 o'clock, but you can come on out and browse the auction. There's no auctioneer, so you can bid online. It's a wonderful scene. You can enjoy a free hot dog. We might even provide some chili. But they're going to be good hot dogs, real good hot dogs. And then you can learn more about what we can do as we the people, patriots, to make the grassroots changes that will bring our government back in line. And that is on September 14th. So you don't have to be there all day, but just put it on your calendar and stop on in and collect some information, ask us any questions that you want, check out the auction, have a hot dog, and then go on about the rest of your day.
Exactly. And if you've gone to conventionofstates.com before that and signed the petition and looked at all that information, there'll be people there ready to answer any kind of questions that you might have.
What do you think the biggest hang up is? Do you think I'm just wondering, I'm trying to anticipate what people might be thinking, out there in radio land about, they might be thinking, I just don't have time for this. Or, what I really want to do is try and stimulate people to take a course of action.
I find, Linda, that a lot of people are hoping that the one thing that they do will make the difference forever. That they're trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark with every swing of the bat. And that doesn't happen on a regular basis in the same way it doesn't happen in baseball. What we need to learn to do is take a positive step, move in a positive direction. If you have not called your legislator before, do it for the first time. You will be encouraged, I believe, by the kindness and the respect that you're shown on that phone call. And I would also recommend that read the paper, watch them online, find out what they are involved in, and call them and agree with them on the things that you agree with them on, and then respectfully disagree with them on the things that you disagree with them on.
Or follow them on social media.
Yes.
I mean, they probably post on Facebook or somewhere, and so it's just become, sign up, follow them. You'll also find out where they're going, what their schedule is, and, that's important.
And they will be glad to let you know what their positions on things are.
That's right. It would be interesting to hear their position, especially if they don't feel like supporting it. And that's a conversation for sure.
Exactly. And this is a part of learning who you have installed as somebody who is carrying your position into government.
Mm-hmm. What about the ones that don't? You've heard the argument. And I haven't, but I know you have because you've been doing this, for years. But what is the argument that they present if a legislator doesn't want to support it? What are some of the most common negative asides that they've got?
There are really crazy ideas, like people will say things that aren't supported by facts, like Convention of States will just get rid of guns. That does not fit into the resolutions that you and I have talked about. Right. Reducing the size and scope of Washington. You can't reduce gun control, or you can't increase gun control and reduce the size of government. So a lot of the arguments, if you stop and think about them, are run contrary to the facts. But it's so easy for us just to say, no, that's not true. And when we learn just a little bit, and when we listen to what is being said, it really is a valuable resource for us. One of the arguments legislators will often say is, I don't believe in term limits. Well, I'm probably talking to most everyone on the radio right now who does, who thinks that a Nancy Pelosi or a Mitch McConnell have been in Congress too long. But the whole point of a convention of states and government by the people is that they need to be representing our ideas, not taking their ideas and forcing them on us. So if the people want term limits and the government officials don't want term limits, they need to be mature enough to say, we're just going to force this on you, rather than pretend that they are listening to the will of the people. When the will of the people speak up, they will have to listen, but we have to speak up together. We have to be united in issues that are big enough that there is a groundswell of support.
Well, I will be ashamed if Virginia can't pass it this time. I'm going to quickly read the list of states that have passed it. Georgia, Alaska, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Indiana, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arizona, North Dakota, Texas, Missouri, Arkansas, Utah, Mississippi, Wisconsin, Nebraska, West Virginia, South Carolina. And those have already passed. And Virginia needs to be on that list.
We
should be ashamed. Those people have gotten it together. You know, that means the people in those states have gotten it together. We need to get it together. It's embarrassing.
Exactly.
It's embarrassing. It's like, okay, people in Virginia are asleep, or they just don't care, or they're not politically activated, don't have enough acumen to do the job. This is ridiculous.
Or we're comfortable enough in the situation that we are.
Yeah, which we know is not true.
And we aren't comfortable.
Yeah.
Especially in these last few years, we have become more and more uncomfortable. And our legislators need to hear that.
Well, and I just, whenever I get wrapped up thinking about this convention, I can't help but think about the men and women who sacrificed so much 250 years ago to get this ball rolling. And there was nobody that was, I just can't imagine. I don't think there were too many people that sat it out, that didn't care, that didn't do anything. I mean, it was the topic of conversation everywhere, in every tavern, everywhere. People, I just can't imagine, if you were literate, you were on top of things. And they sacrificed so much. And I just think we need to, we don't need to let America just dribble through our fingers and just be stalled out.
It's so important, Linda. The movie that I'm reminded of is It's a Wonderful Life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the question in that family was, George Bailey, if you hadn't lived, what would the town of Bedford Falls be like? If America ceased to exist, what would this world be like? That is a critical thing for us to think about. What can we do to promote freedom and to promote this kind of government? Start by calling your legislator and telling him or her what's important to you.
Okay, that's a good reminder. I'm going to bust in again and mention the Crowning Touch booth at the Crowning Touch Browse and Bid auction on Saturday, September 14th. Again, you can browse the auction, enjoy a free hot dog, and learn more about what you can do as a patriot to make the grassroots changes. Okay, we're trying to rein our government back in. And then I need to just, we're going to have to close. It's sad. It's already time to say goodbye. I want to thank you, Susan, for your enthusiastic support of the Convention of States. And listeners, we hope you remember to sign the petition online at the conventionofstates.com. That's conventionofstates.com. And then please remember to join us again at noon next Friday for the continuation of our Front Porch Tales series sponsored by Crowning Touch. I interview the mountain people of Appalachia, and we look back in time and examine the old ways and what remains of that mountain lifestyle today. So come join us on the front porch Fridays at noon on Fox Radio 910 and 104.3. God bless you all.
God bless America.